Shabbat Shalom. So Sherlock Holmes and Watson are out camping. And in the middle of the night, Sherlock wakes Watson up and says, "Look up. What do you see?" And Watson says, "I see the stars." And Sherlock says, "What can you deduce from that?" And Watson says, "Well, meteorologically, I can deduce that it's not going to rain tomorrow." And Sherlock says, "What else?" He says, "Well, cosmologically, I can deduce that the moon is in the 7th house and Jupiter aligns with Mars." And Sherlock says, what else? And he says, "Well, theologically, I can deduce that we are all infinitesimal specks in the face of a vast and amazing universe." And Sherlock says, "Anything else?" And Watson goes, "No, I think that's it. What am I missing?" And Sherlock says, "Someone stole our tent." Now, a much more serious version of this same idea, as well as an indicator that someone at NASA knows the Parsha schedule, is that new images were released this week from the James Webb Telescope, a part of the galaxy known as the Pillars of Creation, a giant mass of dust and gas where stars are in the process of being formed. Now, if you aren't familiar with the Webb telescope, it's super cool. You should be. So this is a telescope that was deployed. It is some million miles from Earth. It can see, it's got something like 10 times the capability of the Hubble telescope. It can see in infrared, which means it can see light coming to us from 100 million years ago. That is what the images we are able to get. And this is part of a project that we humans have been engaged in since, Ptolemy or Galileo, to see our cosmos, to know what's going on in the world. And now we're searching for, this is how far back we think we can go, something known as cosmic dawn. Cosmic dawn, which is the very first stars that were ever created from the sort of massive gas left behind from the Big Bang. We are able to see the first stars being created in front of us. This was deployed earlier this summer. It is perhaps one of the greatest things humanity has accomplished in our quest to understand the world around us. And while someone at NASA, for sure, sending the Pillars of Creation out right before Shabbat Bereshit, knows the Parsha cycle, I'm not sure that they know the Mishnah, because the Mishnah specifically forbids exactly this. In the second chapter of Masechet Chagiga, don't worry, there's no quiz. The rabbis say that it is forbidden to investigate 4 things. Mala 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 mata malifim mala achorim. Right? What is above us? What is below us? What is ahead of us, meaning perhaps in time, and what is behind us, what happened already. So the rabbis in the Mishnah say a person forfeits their life if they investigate outside of the parameters of what humanity is meant to know. Now, along come the rabbis in the Talmud. This is, a couple hundred years later, and they discuss this. And they say, well, of course, yes, of course, there's a prohibition about investigating what happened before creation. So let's tell you what happened before creation. And then they spend pages talking about it. And they say, and of course, it's forbidden to investigate what's up in heaven. But let's talk about what's up in heaven. And then they spend pages and pages talking about it, because we can't help ourselves. We want to know more and more about our world. And not only is it okay, it might in fact be commanded. Now, later rabbi known as Rambam, Rabbi Moses ben Maimonides, actually turns this into a biblical command to investigate the world around us, to try to know more about God. Says Rambam, the wanting to know more about something shows our love of that thing. I joked with Phil earlier about the Phillies, right? But when you love a sports team, you can name all the players. You can name all the pitchers from the last 20 years or whatever it is, right? Wanting to know more about something shows how much we care and love about it. So Maimonides in his law code, right? Mishnah Torah. This is his big law code about everything a Jew needs to know. Spends the first 4 chapters talking about the heavens, talking about planets, talking about the stars, talking about how all of these things are created. And he even tells us why he does that. And Maimonides gives us 2 reasons for why we are going to investigate into the heavens. First, he says, is that we want to know that everything in the world has a power beneath it. And everything, that our God, the God of our cosmos, the God of the Torah, is not a God that is the God of thunder, the God of lightning, or the God of wine, or the God of certain. Our God is the God that created all of those things. We are reaching for a higher order power when we pray, when we believe. And our God has no limit, created the entire cosmos, the solar system, and therefore everything in the cosmos and solar system permeates with the power of God. And practically, what does this mean for us? Maimonides is telling us at the beginning of his law code that our laws, our religion has to touch on every single corner of existence. We just finished a wonderful set of holidays where we come to shul, we dress in white, we don't wear leather, we feel pious and holy, and that is good. But this reminds us that we have to be pious when we're in the supermarket as well as when we're in synagogue. This reminds us that the religion that we want to believe in, the religion that we want to practice, has to be a religion that thinks about every corner of our world, every facet of who we are, every facet of our society. Nothing is beyond our religion because our God created everything. And the second reason, says Maimonides, for why we study the cosmology or cosmogony, I think is the more accurate, how the heavens were created. The second reason, says Rambam, is because when a human being looks up into the sky and they see the stars and they think about how vast everything is and what little specks we are. Again, think about it. Tomorrow night, go up, or tonight, go outside, look up at the stars. The light that is entering into your eye started thousands of years ago somewhere else. You can look, if the Chazan was telling me before Shabbat about, I'm not going to say it right, Fomalhaut. Okay, we're going to Google that later. Fomalhaut is known as the lonely star. Where is it? It's a first magnitude star that is not surrounded by any other star. It's in the southeastern part of our sky. Check it out. The light that started there has taken, it's actually quite close, only 25 years, but it's taken 25 years just to get to us. Think of how small we are in relation to the world around us. So says Rambam, that gives human beings the humility we need to get through the day. The whole point in many ways of our religion and why Rambam starts with the cosmos is to remember that we're small and that we need help. And it gives us right thought and right action to think about the vastness of the world around us. And that's good too. And I want to add one final one. It also shows hope and the audacity of man, that we are able to see the world around us, that we are able to grasp farther and farther out into the cosmos or into the building blocks of creation to see particles that exist that no one ever thought that they did, that we have this amazing capacity for understanding. And we have this amazing capacity for building and building things that can see and be this. And so one of the reasons why the James Webb Telescope was so incredible is it's something that we build that is hopeful for the future. Now, we're still getting to know each other, but some of you know I'm a big science fiction fan. I told you this would be a little bit about science fiction. If you think right now about the sci-fi fantasy worlds, if not, just think about baseball for a second, and we'll be back in a minute, I promise. Think about the science fiction, the futuristic stuff that's been created in the last 10 years. Almost all of it imagines a world of dystopia. Think Hunger Games, think the one that I Divergent, think, right? A world that is full of issues and problems, a world, there's really only one thing in the last, I don't know, half century that is purely and wholly hopeful. For 100 bonus points, and I promise we're about to end, what is it? I heard it, Star Trek. Yeah, that's the only one. That's the only one that is hopeful in its outlook. And we need more of that. And that's what James Webb is doing. It's saying, look at what's out there, and we can build this amazing thing that took off in a rocket that was like the size of a school bus and then unfolded on its own to be the size of a tennis court and completely worked. And now we can continue to build and we can continue to see. And it's not, by the way, that it's perfect. In fact, far from it. One of the most fascinating things that Webb is teaching us is how often something in the middle of space gets hit with little asteroids. But it was built to self-correct and to self-repair from those asteroids. This, friends, we don't need science to tell us this. We had Yom Kippur to tell us this. We're going to be imperfect. Genesis teaches us that we're going to be imperfect as we build towards the future, but we need to self-correct, self-repair, make amends, and be stronger for all the little meteorites that are hitting us constantly. So as we go out into the world we've created, as we expand and explore more in the world that's out there, we do it with a sense of awe and reverence for God. We do it with a sense of humility and just how vast the world is, but we also do it with an audacity of hope that we can do and build wonderful and beautiful things together. Shabbat Shalom.